Hey guys, it's Graham. What's cracking? Very exhausted at the end of a day that went, well, very well to get started and then completely went off the rails in like the last 10% of it. But let's put all that behind us with discussions of fine reading literature. Finished a book yesterday, and I could have very easily jumped right into doing recording and all that on the way home from work, but I wanted to digest it just a little bit. It was a fantastic book. I was wavering and kind of like leaning towards 4 stars all the way through, like a very good 4 stars, but it ended very, very strong and I gave it 5. It's the third in that series, The Adventures of Bloody Jack by L.A. Meyer, I remember now is the author's name. I reviewed this one before. It was the one where the girl disguises herself as a boy to become a sailor in Britain's Navy 200 years ago. And she starts having woman problems and can't talk to anybody on the boat about it. That's just one minor plot point in a long and detailed but very, very good story. Like it's got a good pace to it and all that. So, but it was just, I gave that as an example of like, well, if you want to actually have a realistic female protagonist who has successes and failures and et cetera, like this would be a great property to look at. And then I remembered that it had been like 5 or 6 years since I read a book in that series. It's like, I just got distracted and I really ought to go back to that one. So I looked up the Wikipedia summaries just to remind myself of what had happened in the previous two. And then I jumped into the third one, and it was fantastic. I'm eventually going to do longer videos about this whole series just because I'm very impressed by it. But here's the skinny of it right now. So book one, her name is Mary Faber, but she goes by Jackie. That's kind of her street name. Her whole family dies of a plague in London in like 1802 or 3 or something. She's very young. And she's the only survivor. She ends up falling in with a street gang. She's got to learn street survival and stuff. And then to escape that, she goes and joins up with the Navy, pretending to be a boy. She has some adventures at sea. She gets some proper education and ends up being ranked as a midshipman. And then by the end of the story, I won't spoil how it all ends, but there's a run-in with pirates and so on. Like it's good high seas swashbuckling. Her ruse is discovered in the Caribbean, and she's dropped off at a port in Boston. She does get fair pay for her work on the ship, and she's well in love with Jamie Fletcher is his name, a fellow midshipman, but a boy who knows her secret. He's in love with her too. And they exchange rings, and then she's put up in a finishing school for girls, along with like a certificate, a letter of draft for the small, not fortune, but sum of money that she has, which is good enough to pay for the school and leave her with something left over besides. That's the end of the first book. The second book really slowed down, even though it had the same great pacing and prose and narrative voice and all that. It was just a lot slower because it was a girl at an all-girls school, and there was girl drama, and none of it felt corny or cheesy the way that a 21st century high school girl story would, where they're dissing each other based on their shoes or whatever. It was all class-based and snooty and all that. The main intrigue came from the fact that Jackie found out a local priest had been abusing girls and had even killed a girl, and he was acquitted, although the evidence still strongly suggests that he did it. And so Jackie is able to figure out what this girl looked like, and she starts disguising herself as the girl and pretending to be the girl's ghost and harassing this priest in the middle of the night until justice is done. And in true Jackie Faber fashion, her antics just sow chaos, and by the end of the book, the girl's finishing school is burned down and she's shipped off back to England. Really cool little detail here. She ends up finding passage on a whaling vessel that happens to be called the Pequod, and she makes good friends with a crewman named Ishmael. If you're putting those names and details together, you know that it's the ship from Moby Dick. Anyway, this third book starts with her disembarking the Pequod, with a few mentions under her breath about how the captain was always obsessed about some whale and maybe he'll find it someday. But she is back on the streets of London, but she's not having to live on the streets. She's got that sum of money. She goes and looks up her old gang, checks in on them, makes sure they're all doing well, and then she goes to look for her one true love, Jamie Fletcher, who hasn't been responding to her letters this entire time. She goes to his house. The mom knows who she is and doesn't like her at all because she's street trash. Again, there's classism. Throws her out. The next day, Jackie goes and dresses herself up as a horse jockey to hang out at the horse racing tracks where she knows Jamie will be. And wouldn't you know it, he's got a girl on his arm and she feels betrayed and she goes and leaves in a fit of tears, and she ends up getting grabbed by a press gang and hauled out to sea. And she thinks, well, okay, this sucks, but as soon as I just tell the captain that I'm a girl, it'll be fine and they'll all bring me back to shore and whatever. Nope, she gets put on a dungy, grungy, nasty, grody ship with an unscrupulous captain who then immediately starts making overtures to what he's going to do with the only girl on the boat because it's the early 1800s and what are you going to do to stop it? I'll save the rest of the details for my overall detailed review of it. Suffice it to say that it was a masterclass in tension and distress, and it didn't shy away from the real difficulties that a girl in Jackie's situation would face under those circumstances. There's more swashing and buckling and all that stuff. The book is called Under the Jolly Roger. In a sense, it's a long, protracted series of consequences for a girl who acts a little bit too rashly when she sees something and jumps to conclusions and then finds out later that it wasn't all what she thought it was. I thought the main conceit of the story was just going to be her surviving this ship and surviving the captain, and then you get about 45% of the way through the book and she's able to resolve that particular issue, and it's like, frick, there's still a lot of this book left. And then it felt like it was just going to become kind of a wandering pirate adventure. And I was like, where's this all going? But the way that it ties up, the payoff in the end, made it all worth it. One final note that I want to say, because I listened to the audiobook version, as one trucker does. I believe the narrator's name is Catherine Kellgren. This is one of those books that it's not narrated, it is performed. And she does a superb job. So if your library has these, I definitely recommend picking them up. There are, I believe, 8 or 9 in total, and I'm excited to read the rest of them. L.A. Meyer, his name is Lewis Meyer, sadly passed away in 2016, if I remember right. Not like of old age, but he was advanced in years. He was in his 60s or 70s, I want to say. And I believe he had a condition that took him. But the final book, if I read right, was published posthumously, and it finished the story. But these are just excellent. I'm going to eventually grab print copies of them, but you should definitely check them out. Read The Adventures of Bloody Jack, and I'm going to put this series on the list of books to do like longer scripted content for, because they are well worth the read. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks everybody for listening. Subscribe, check out the links in the description, go buy my books, get me out of the truck. Until next time, drive safe. See you out there.